I want to watch films by filmmakers that are like fully instinctual and like the craft is driven by that. That's what I'm there to watch, you know? I don't want to watch something that feels manufactured for an ideal audience. I want a vision.
So, welcome
Thank you.
to Director's Notes. I am so chuffed, yeah, that we will be able to talk about this because I love all the animation films this
Mm,
year for BAFTA. I think we've got a real sort of wide range.
mm.
So I am just going to let you introduce yourself and introduce your film to us, please.
Sure. My name is JP Vine, and I'm the writer and director of Cardboard.
And Cardboard is available online now.
Hmm.
So I'll be sort of signaling people to that
Yeah.
and sort of give us a little bit of your origins because I'm going to
Mm.
dig deeper with some questions, but just give us
Okay,
an
cool.
overview of how it came to be,
How Cardboard came to be, or how,
how
yeah,
Cardboard came to be.
how Cardboard came to be. So I was a storyboard artist at Pixar for a good few years and was very keen on trying to get into a directing seat somehow. I guess because I want to be in the middle of the action. Um, and one of the sort of ways you prove yourself as a storyteller is get a short done. And I was casting around for ideas, and it wasn't until I was on a road trip with my family on the going through the Nevada desert on a particularly grim day towards Utah, and it was kind of awesome, cinematically widescreen landscape, but with these strange little trailer parks that would just kind of appear in the dust, you know. And I used to be a set designer and set dresser, so I'm very keen on like a sense of place and the kind of spirit of a place that often triggers a lot of ideas for me. And so I just started thinking about why people were living in the middle of nowhere, you know, like what kind of things happened, you know, because they didn't look like places you would particularly retire to, you know, like
Yeah.
the um and so I just started thinking about this location and a story about somebody arriving there, you know, for their as a new home and what kind of baggage they might be bringing. And it kind of I tinkered with it, but generally, you need some kind of emotional hook. And then for me, I kind of landed on it when I thought back to a period in my life when I was about 10 and our family were without a home for a couple of years. Um, so we were staying with friends and trying to get on a housing list and all of that.
Mm.
And um, and then we arrived at our new home, and it was a huge change for the family and kind of strange and weird. And I just leaned into that moment. Um, and it got me thinking about what it would have felt like for my parents, you know, kind of trying to how they would have felt trying to sort our lives out. But also me as a kid, I was very independently. I would do my own thing. I would go walk the dog in the woods. I would do drawings, and so I would get lost. I escaped into my own world, you know, um, kind of escape the drama by drawing. And once I kind of thought about that, I kind of had a hook. I had a hook that would sort of see me through this story, which is about a dad that's kind of burdened and feels like he's made a terrible mistake, and then the children who see this change as something, um, an opportunity to kind of discover, to play, to be themselves, and they kind of lead the way for him to see this new life, in a completely different, through a different lens, through their eyes, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, you highlight sort of the beauty of imagination and
Mm,
creativity. And I love that. I mean, I was very much a child who was out in the woods and was out playing with
mm,
things. And I had matchboxes like full of loads of creatures, you know.
yeah.
And I was brought back to that place where
Mm,
there's no sort of restraints.
mm,
Everything is a possibility rather
mm,
than how adults see it as a
mm,
hurdle to overcome. You've just opened up this sort of beautiful world,
mm.
which I think we could all do with reminding ourselves that that's around, that's available.
Yeah. I think it's interesting when it went out on YouTube for a limited period, and it is on YouTube again
Yeah,
now. I was really like so pleased to see how people reacted, like because it was triggering those kind of memories or that kind of being in that state of mind, and um yeah, that sense of play, that sense of wonder is like it feels like it's in short supply, you know?
yeah,
And
totally.
and and it's so important to like fight for it. And even in, even as I'm starting on a new feature project, I often think about like how do you keep that sense of play in a bigger team? How do you approach kind of everything in your life with this sense of possibility? Um, and there's the other thing about simplicity. I think also a cardboard box is like the most basic prop. And I just kind of wanted it to be as basic as possible, but like cinematically as big as possible, because like what's going on in their heads is massive. The way we played games as kids, we were like the centerpiece of an action movie. You know, we used to play like Star Wars battles in a bush, and the bush was like the Millennium Falcon, So it was like that like it's such a powerful thing that humans can do. They don't need much to kind of come up with like massive drama. So I just I just felt like I wanted to completely celebrate it basically.
Yeah. And I very much think you do. And I want to dig into later the worlds that you're building, but
Mm,
I wanted to speak about doing this with Locksmith Animation.
mm,
Because you were with Pixar before, and I know you did things with Aardman, like
yeah.
landing with them, and obviously you changing your journey, becoming a director. So what was
Mm.
it that Locksmith what home did they offer you that you knew was the right place?
Yeah, I'd done some early boards whilst I was at Pixar, but then, like I said, I was hoping to get into a feature directing role, and then Locksmith began as a studio in London, founded by ex-colleagues from Aardman, but with this sort of real ambition to kind of for big picture storytelling, the kind of stuff that was sort of the preserve of kind of Pixar. And there's so much talent in the UK and in Europe and in London. I was really excited about coming and being part of that sort of founding team with Ron's Gone Wrong. And it was super challenging in terms of like a startup
Mm.
making a feature. Also, we made it. Did our production with DNEG Animation, and they were kind of doing their first big step into feature as well. But that gave a really great energy. Um, and then after Ron was finished, there's this sort of period when you're a director, people are asking you what you're going to do next. And I was pitching a bunch of projects, feature projects, but the short just was kind of looking at me from the hard drive, going, like, what
It's
are you
my
going to
turn
do?
now.
Yeah, it's my turn. And I had been trying to find a partnership to make it, whether it was even a 2D short with a French studio. But then I spoke to Julie Lockhart, co-founder of Locksmith, about it, and we just had this window, kind of between films, where we had artists that were able to give it some time. We didn't really have a budget for it, but it was, it's always hard to justify, a short film.
Yeah, of course.
But from a studio point of view, um, what I'm really glad Locksmith kind of they championed it because a short film is so great for a studio. Like the features are so massive, and there's like a 2 or 3 or 4 year gap between them. And we just argued like this short will come out. It'll just kind of grow the Locksmith sort of storytelling, kind of, brand. And it will also give me a chance to work to kind of elevate some talent within the studio. So the VFX soup, Andy Begali was, like a technical CG artist. And
Okay.
then my producer, had done production, but she hadn't produced an animated project all the way through. So having come off the feature, I love the sort of elevating and mentorship side of this work.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so Locksmith gave me that platform. We tried different ways to partner with people. For
Mhm.
example, Epic with Unreal Engine, and the short always nearly came together for production and then kind of fell apart. But then DNEG came on board, and it was again another chance to kind of elevate a side of their company that wasn't getting much director time.
Mm.
So I was given a crew in the DNEG India team to kind of focus together on the short and kind of give them director time and more ownership. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things where it just had to find the right partnerships,
Yeah.
took a while, but then
Yeah.
once we got it, we moved pretty fast.
I think a lot of, for me as well, especially talking to all the filmmakers, a lot of those best projects are the ones that might have been sort of bubbling away and they come up and they come down. It means there's always this passion, there's so much love. You don't feel like you're just churning out
Yeah.
films for the sake of it. It feels like
Mm.
this story is something that you're so passionately attached to.
Hmm.
And I love, it's sort of what you said about different people being able to take on more responsibility and
Mm.
roles. And that's one of the beautiful films of, the like beautiful areas of short film,
Mm.
is that it
Yeah.
gives people that opportunity to learn and to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I kept talking, describing this film as kind of quite therapeutic for me to make. I mean, it's very therapeutic getting something done that you've been longing to make for
Yeah.
so long. But also working with a smaller team after a feature, um, and also discovering new partnerships. So Hugo Bryce, the composer, was someone that came to me via a mutual friend. He had worked on That Christmas in music editing, but he and I built a lovely partnership on this film, and like a real kind of sync. And just when you get that feeling of like you've been on your own for a while with this thing and suddenly the cavalry's coming and just kind of pushing it to the next level, but we're all in sync over the feeling and the tone and the kind of the way we want the audience to be left at the end. It's kind of what you wish for, really. It
Yeah.
really is.
It is. And it's sort of the names that you're mentioning, it's great because I was on the Locksmith Animation YouTube channel, and
Mm,
you've got these brilliant sort of little mini videos of
yeah,
breaking down. So you've got that bit with the composer, and he's sat there at the piano.
yeah, yeah.
I love all those little insights. I think that more people need to be doing those,
Mm,
because it allows people who might not understand, who might be scared to break through, that like, look, you can do this and get everyone
yeah,
involved. So yeah, I'll signal to that in the interview because they were just
yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you think, damn it, we should have been like recording BTS all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
the beauty of hindsight.
yeah. You'll get one of my favorites is the lyric video. So Hugo wrote a song. Right when we were wrapping production, he was wrapping up the score, but then he sent me an email kind of late night and said, "Hey, I just you don't have to use this at all, but I just felt like I wanted to kind of sum up the way I feel about this story, but also the way I feel about my own, my own connection to my family and how it all came through in this um, short. And he wrote a song called Cardboard, which is on Spotify, and there's a lyric video as well. Um, but it was just one of those things where I'm playing it and I'm just kind of like ugly crying on my laptop because of that. Like when you get like, yeah, real talent, but they're responding and they're in sync with what you kind of kicked off. Um, it's a really great thing. And that lyric video has a lot of behind the scenes of scoring, doing artwork or doing Foley, so it's a fun one to watch.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, there's already
Yeah.
so much. I was like, I have so much more to dig into.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is, I don't know whether
Hmm.
you've been asked this. Why pigs?
I have been asked
Okay,
this.
great.
Yeah, and it's and unfortunately, I don't. I do tend to draw pigs a lot. I mean, I'm just looking. Hang on.
What have you got?
Yeah, it's when you have animal. I don't know if you can see that, but there's some pigs
Yeah, I
in
can see
there.
that
Yeah,
now.
yeah. So this was a drawing I did for my daughter, but yeah, I feel like a lot of well, I as an artist, I have a kind of a default doodle, like whenever I'm kind of like my brain's wandering, um, and I would draw th these pig characters kind of out exploring, like we were talking about, like out in the woods or and so. I knew it was a bit left field, like why pigs in a trailer park, but then there was something so weirdly specific about it that I just thought, you know what, I think that's ace. And so I kind of pulled those pigs out of my subconscious drawing mode and into the short, and just kind of committed to them. So, I think a bit of weirdness and kind of unexplained reasoning is nice in animation. Like so yeah, it's I just love pigs, I guess.
Great. And it's all about
Yeah.
kind of breaking the rules as well, because these pigs, they walk on two legs, because why
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because you're allowed to do that, and that's
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
want to do.
Exactly.
And that's the magic of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it gave me the chance to do warthogs as the neighbors as well. So, I like that, the kind of redneck neighbors.
that's what I was going to say. I was like, within the pig world, there's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many different sort of variations of who
Yeah,
you have.
yeah.
And like Mrs. Warthog lying in her tin bath with like a
Yeah,
radio.
yeah.
She's just brilliant. I know I've seen her.
Yeah, yeah. They're just living their best lives out
Yeah,
there. Yeah, it's great.
absolutely. So one of the things that I'm sure, and I know you've spoken about, but is the beauty of this. So it feels so hand drawn. It feels
Mm,
so detailed. Like when I was just watching it earlier, looking because one of the pigs, one of them's got a beautiful sort of patch eye. The other
mm,
one's got like a little collection of freckles.
mm,
And
mm,
it's one of those films that I feel I could watch it over and over again and each time pick
mm,
out more detail.
mm.
But I mean, work-wise, that must have been like you were dedicated for the beautiful detail.
Yeah, I love illustration and kind of ink and watercolor. I mean, just like that is kind of an example of the way I draw, which is kind of ink pens and watercolor. And having done sort of photoreal CG films,
Yeah.
I was really interested in how do we find our own visual way into this that also meant something for the story. And we knew we didn't want to do photoreal, but we're not doing sort of Spider-Verse. It was something more gentle, more illustrative, more kind of evocative of childhood is what I was chasing.
And that goes with
Um,
that imagination and sort of
yeah,
weird things that can happen.
yeah. So it's a really interesting process of when you start with CG and then you gradually kind of try and remove the CG, and I think we're just on the sort of we're in the early years of what we can do. I think for so long people were sort of in a sort of photoreal, literal mindset about how we make CG films, and it's the most open-ended medium we could have. Like we can go anywhere with it visually.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, the sort of irregularity and the handmadeness, I think that also plays to a sense of warmth, and charm and appeal. And I've always been keen on the hand of the artist. And working at Aardman in early on, I was an assistant animator, and there was, it was Nick Park's thing to kind of leave the thumbprints in the clay. And it's all just kind of it all sort of anchors the film in this feeling of warmth and craft. And so yeah, lots of kind of hand-drawn things, lots of watercolory layers. I would paint on my iPad, and kind of Andy the VFX soup was also really keyed into kind of how to make things look papery or splattery. And then once the whole crew got that, they're all really excited about it because quite often you're a little restricted, by the look of a movie. But this was a little bit more free and liberal.
Yeah.
And then once we get into the space sequences, it's kind of like, how do you take that recipe, that sort of visual recipe, and then go nuts with it, and kind of have, if it's watercolor, you have splatters of ink and, you know, we made the lights and the glow of the sun and the torch lights. We made those like watercolor bleeding. Um, Even the depth of field of the camera is kind of, it doesn't blur like normal. It sort of moves like paint.
Yeah.
So all of
Yeah.
that stuff, like I'd love to make a feature like this and just keep going because it's it's such a kind of beautiful sandbox to play in, that kind of non-photo real world.
Yeah, I just think the depth that I was
Mm,
seeing was it just blew my mind, and like you said with the space bits as well, you've got two very different worlds.
mm,
The dad's reality is obviously a bit dark and sad and
mm, mm,
mundane, and then we've just got this brightness and these flashes, and
mm.
you're great, you're just cutting between them,
Yeah.
which I loved. But
Oh.
I imagine, yeah. uh, What's the sort of time on that? Does it make it a lot longer having to sort of input those
Um,
details?
Actually, it's quite cost effective and time effective once you've figured out the game plan.
Yeah.
Because, for example, my backgrounds were just sort of splooges of watercolor, in a lot of ways. So, um, it can go really fast once you've got like a strong roadmap and you've got your colors working. So the two worlds kind of have the dry, dusty palette and then the kind of aquamarine and
Yeah.
saturated colors. And if I kind of went bonkers with all of them, it would just, I think, be a mess. But we just kind of, especially when we intercut, we just come out of these two kind of palettes. But yeah, it's quite a quick way to work, it's almost like quite 2D where you're kind of comping
Yeah.
backgrounds and effects and things like that.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, in my mind, I was imagining like a whole extra level to it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like you said, it's still a world that's yet to be explored
Yeah.
and so much work to come out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It'd be great.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
no, it's so exciting. Like, what's going to
Uh-huh.
come? Were you always planning on it being dialogue free?
Yeah. Yeah. I sort of, my film school was Shaun the Sheep, the TV show.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's where I learned to storyboard and then direct. And so that format, it's also very similar to a Pixar short. Most of them, they're dialogue free. And I just was happy to play in that world for this short. And the other thing is I was interested in this short playing to young audiences as much as it's playing to adults, like I wanted the young kids to really lock into this. So it kind of made sense to go dialogue free. And yeah, having worked on 40 or 50 episodes of Shaun the Sheep, you kind of get used to like staging things and just pure acting and visuals and situations that kind of give you enough to work with. And
Yeah.
also like there's plenty of dialogue, but it's just non-verbal, so it's
Yeah, true. We've got some great like squeaking when he's trying to,
yeah, yeah.
bring him back to life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there's plenty of noise. I don't know, I think in my mind, I mean, I do have quite a vivid imagination. In my mind, I was making up what they were saying.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
I that's a beauty to it as well. It's
Yeah.
like when you're reading a book, I've got a very strong sense of what their voice would be like,
Yeah.
what they'd sound like.
Yeah. I love sound design as well. There's something nice about a non-verbal short film is that kind of you can also really lean on sound design even harder, I think, in terms of rhythm and placement of sounds and specificity of sounds. So intercutting between like space and reality,
Hmm.
often the sound is intercutting as well, but in a different or funny way. So like when the spaceship is kind of tumbling through space
Hmm.
and it's kind of rolling and going and then it cuts to a box going downstairs, and then it goes doop doop doop.
Yeah.
But it's kind of getting the rhythm. It's that those are the things that my editor Connor and I would like labor over because it's sort of how it how to make it really sing, you know, getting those rhythm pieces working together.
Yeah. And those are the comedy moments as well.
Yeah.
You know, you want that sort of, yeah, they're powering through space, and afterwards you can just imagine this box that,
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
want,
totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got, and comedy, as we all know, it's timing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So was that just hours spent in the edit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a real believer in like a very tight animatic that all of the DNA of the sound design, even though you'll polish it and embellish it, the rhythmic beats and the comedy payoff, like we really try and make them work in the storyboard phase and the editing the animatic. Um uh so yeah, labored over it quite a bit there. And then
Mm.
often, as with all things in animation, it sort of falls apart as you go through production and you kind of have to pull it back into shape again. So and it's really great when you've got an editor who is that's the kind of thing that really what editors really battle for. Like, you know, if a sound is funny, like they'll protect the comedy of, you know, among all the other things they do, they fight for the comedy of certain, you know, sounds and things. So but for me, I love it. That's what I love about animation is crafting rhythm. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
Yeah. And it's one of those things as well that I think as an audience, as just a viewer, you just be realizing it subconsciously. It would just be
Mm,
flowing, and you'd be like,
yeah,
oh, we're going up and we're going down, especially, you've got a very short amount of time to
yeah,
bring people on this beautiful journey.
yeah,
So yeah, you've got to keep those beats.
yeah, for sure.
So what I'd love to know, like, what have you learnt making cardboard that you now are excited to put into something else, or other techniques that you want to use in a different way?
Yeah. I mean, what was really nice about cardboard was we had to do this quite rough and ready. Uh, quite sort of I like to work rough to fine.
Hmm.
So for example, the trailer part, we just kind of put a few it's like putting a few cereal boxes and going, well, that's the trailer, and there's the pig there. And because when you're working that roughly, then you can kind of build a map and then people just add, they start adding more, but everyone knows and understands how it's all gelling together.
Mm.
With my first feature, it's tricky because sometimes you can kind of overdo it. You can, especially on feature, you can over design things. You can design things that you'll never see, you know. So it's gotten me much more interested in how do we pre-visualize and work rough to fine, um, but in a way that still, you know, you keep the charm of the storyboard, but you're keeping things loose and then you iterate and you're not kind of driving artists crazy by making them build tons and tons of stuff in detail, but you're building the film roughly and then elevating it layer by layer.
Okay.
And there's a lot of interesting tools now in animation, things like Unreal Engine and Blender and um, tools still in play that kind of give us that freedom to work kind of loosely.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to continue working that way, even as we go into another feature at some point. Because as long as you know what story you're telling, as long as you know the intent is clear,
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to work. And yeah, I mean, I think on a personal level, it's it's delightful to kind of put out a film that sort of reflects kind of my way of seeing and way of doing things. And you then get kind of excited about, okay, how do we keep going? You know,
Yeah.
you just get fired up to make more.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm imagining, because you're like, right, so we did this time, and I'd love to
Yeah,
add
yeah,
an extra level, and where do
yeah,
we go next?
absolutely.
That's the beauty, like animation, there's just so much, and
Mm,
yeah. We were talking briefly about, sort of, I think I very much saw it from a child's point of view, but I can see that there's a huge audience,
yeah.
for cardboard. What do you think it's shown you about the general appetite for animation and what people are looking for and what they want to engage with?
Um, I mean, I think that it was quite interesting sort of seeing the reactions to it online where I think people there was almost a sense of nostalgia, I suppose, about the short where um I really appreciate Locksmith for getting behind this because it's hard to get done these kind of things but I think that people really connect with it. This short form that's been made, that's kind of got some heart, it's got comedy. I think it's um it's just not done enough. And
I completely agree.
yeah,
And if
and
it is done, it's like, one guy doing it all by himself for
exactly,
years and
yeah.
years.
Yeah, and I mean, Luke's film Solstice is an incredible achievement. Having made all that by himself is incredible. Um, but yeah, I think that I do sort of really appreciate that this seems to have resonated with people emotionally, and in the comedy as well. And it just sort of gives me more appetite to the best things about the best Pixar movies I worked on. They kind of had a universal resonance to them, like Inside Out. Um, and you're always chasing that. And I do believe in that. I think that there's incredible films being made, but for me personally, I want that kind of lingering resonance feeling in the animation I make. So just want to continue that path, really.
Yeah. And then, so what's next? Are there things you can talk about?
Um, well, so I now head up a studio, working with unusually a mobile games company who are very passionate about animation.
That's good to
Um,
know.
yeah, which is really exciting because I now have some opportunity to put a team together and build I'm working on a short films, and then I'm building a feature plan for the studio. So that's exciting because it's exciting to be given the opportunity, but also to be working in London with the great talent in the UK and Europe and also from the States that are joining us. So I've always loved the sort of startup side of things. Um, and I want to try and bring a bit of that kind of cardboard energy to the way we work together. And the way we kind of trust each other, trust the process, that all of those are things that are very meaningful to me and how I want to keep making films.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think I say this to so many of my filmmakers, but I believe it's true. Like when you're watching a film, if I'm fully into it, it's because I know that the director is fully into it, that there is all
Mm,
of their heart, all of their soul. And I honestly believe that you can tell. And that's what makes
mm,
the difference between a good film, a great film, and a wonderful film. Is that
hmm
sort of engagement with it. So yeah. So that just makes me happy to hear there's more of that.
That's the plan. I'll
That
have to try and trust the other. I think the thing is also, and kind of say this to sort of younger filmmakers is you um your instincts are your kind of fuel.
Yeah,
They're what are going to drive you through. And I think it's earlier in your career, it's harder to trust your instincts because you're kind of like questioning your skill level or questioning your credibility. But as time goes by, you're like, oh, all of those questions were like a waste of time. Like you have to learn, you have to kind of progress, but um that kind of I want to watch films by filmmakers that are like fully instinctual and like the craft is driven by that. That's what I'm there to watch. I don't want to watch something that feels manufactured for an ideal audience. I want a vision, you
yeah,
know? So yeah, it's important.
it is. It's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that in sort of the three animated films for the BAFTA. I think they've all got that beauty, that passion, and sort
Mm,
of the individuality to them,
yeah.
which is brilliant. So we've mentioned Solstice, and
Mm,
we've got Two Black Boys in Paradise, but I am asking all my filmmakers for them to tell me sort of their favorite short or short films of the moment. So it's one you might have seen recently or one that's your all-time favorite. Now's the
Oh,
time.
wow, that's interesting. You know what? I really loved Retirement Plan, which is by an Irish director called John Kelly, and it's Oscar
It's a
nominated.
divine film.
Yeah. So I sent him some messages, just kind of fanboying over Retirement Plan. I think it's so elegant and so sort of distilled and brilliant. And I really wish him well, even though we didn't get we didn't get nominated. It's it's uh it's fine. But I was really excited. That short just kind of is one of those that you kind of keep thinking about. But yeah, having been on the circuit with cardboard, you kind of get exposed to that sort of just the fun of the all of these projects. You know, there was another one called Playing God, by an Italian team, stop motion that took 7 years, and it's an absolute masterpiece of animation. And so you just kind of get a bit awestruck by, you know, the way these different crew teams and directors have kind of gotten there, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, Retirement Plan, check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be an interview on director's notes.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Tell him tell him I
I
gave him
will.
props.
I'll tell him you were
Yeah,
fan. I was going to say fangirling. Yeah, you were
yeah.
fangirling. Thank you so much.
Thank you.